Good morning, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for attending today's session, today's training. We miss seeing everyone, and we hope with the good news of the vaccine that we'll be together sooner than later. Today, we have Gwyneth Smith and Christina Zupank, who both of whom you know very well. And today we're going to go through an example of a Compass application. As you know, we launched Compass just before COVID broke out, and we had one training. And as our lives have all taken on a very busy perspective, we have provided the guide, which I think is extremely helpful. But today is going to be a good experience for all of us to see what everybody needs and also to provide what you need. So first, I wanted to share some good news in relation to immigration. On December 1st, the United States District Court in the Northern District in California issued a decision that suspended the Department of Labor's wage increase that went into effect on October 8th. Some of you are very familiar with this, and also prevents the implementation of the Department of Homeland Security's proposed changes to the H-1B program, which were to take effect on the 7th. Both interim, final rules really caused us some, grief regarding the prevailing wages and the specialty occupation criteria. So this is extremely welcomed news. So now we'll get to the matter at hand, which is the training. So we'll begin. One important detail I wanted to share with everybody is the importance of the website and how it integrates with, how you use Compass. So, the website has, so much information, and it's continually updated. We have a great communications team on the morning site to campus, and it is, has a wealth of information. But as far as how it relates to submitting applications in Compass, the website provides details about H-1B eligibility, information about notifying us, when a position changes, H-1B position ends or changes, and most important for today, as it relates to the Compass intake. It contains the entire H-1B application process, including the list of supporting documents. So we have recently revised that list to make it a little bit more concise. And so please, follow that list, and it should be, I think, more helpful now. And also on the website, you will be able to find the link to the Compass user guide to direct you through the steps on filing an H-1B application or an H-1B extension. And we've also updated that a little bit recently, so you will see some changes to that. Now I'll pass the baton back to Gwyneth, who will begin the review of the website.
Thanks, Kathy. And Christina's going to help me. She is our #1 navigator today. So thank you, Christina. And we will take it to the website. So this is the page on our website that you will want to go to. So this is on our ISSO main page. You are going to go to 4 departments, and you will go under the tab Sponsoring or Extending, and then you're going to go to the little tab H-1B Specialty Occupation. So right there, you will find a wealth of information that you can use to help you through this process. And actually, it's essential because the website, along with the guide, they are the 2 pieces that you will need in order to complete an entire application. All right, so we will begin. So to begin, the H-1B position needs to qualify as a specialty occupation. And as you can see at the beginning, this information goes over what an H-1B means and how it qualifies. And so it requires a theoretical or practical application of a body of highly specialized knowledge and attainment of a bachelor's or higher degree or its equivalent as a minimum requirement at a wage that meets the higher of the prevailing wage or the actual wage, and the applicant must also hold that required degree in the field of employment. So what this means is that both the position and the employee must meet the H-1B eligibility criteria. So that's the basics of the H-1B. So we always want to keep that in mind when you're deciding whether or not this individual can be sponsored by the H-1B versus another visa category. All right, so as you can see on our website, there's a little orange triangle. These orange triangles mean it's something to pay attention to. And any updates with immigration or updates that you may need to be aware of regarding a fee change or any kind of new notification, such as the premium processing fee increase to $2,500 that was effective on October 19th, that will be broadcast that way so that you can be sure to note any changes. So these updates will be made regularly by our wonderful communications team. So just be sure to pay attention to that. And you can always find the recent updates on our website. All right, so as we go down on this page, you can see the bullet points here on what this page covers. So we're going to cover the H-1B requirements. Before you sponsor, we're going to give you a petition overview, how to sponsor and extend, before you extend, how to extend, related resources, and then it says the SSP and Compass user guides. Please be sure to always use the Compass user guide, as this is the CUIMC system of record and the system that we use at CUIMC. The SSP is for the Morningside campus. And as you will see on this page, there are two places to go. You can go to the Morningside tab or the CUIMC tab. So please always go to the CUIMC tab, as we have slightly different ways to process these H-1B applications. All right, so we will move along to H-1B requirements. As I mentioned before, the position must qualify as a specialty occupation, and the applicant must hold the required degree in this field of employment. So that is a requirement. The position needs to be paid by Columbia, and it must be paid by at least it must be paid a minimum of the prevailing wage that's set by the Department of Labor. So the employment is specific to the H-1B petitioner and allows compensation only from the employer for the work described in the petition. So very, very important to note that you must let us know if there's any substantial changes in the employment, such as a change in the end date, the employment location, title, duties, sources of funding, as we may need to amend the petition. This is not always the case. We need to look at the case itself and see what the situation is, but any change, any material change must be notified to us. All right. And the next is the export control compliance per federal regulations. Columbia University must certify as part of the H-1B petition whether the university needs a license from the federal government in order to allow the prospective employee to access certain controlled technology or technical data. So this is a extremely important, and it is part of the Compass intake process in the actual application itself. And just so that you are aware, H-1B petitions from Colombia must be filed by Colombia's international office. No outside attorneys are permitted. So that would be, they would be filed by us directly. All right. So then moving along here. So now we're going to talk about the positions that qualify and do not qualify for H-1B sponsorship. And I'm going to pass the baton back to Kathy, who's going to go over this in detail.
Okay, thanks, Gwyneth. So the website is, as I said, extremely helpful because it gives you really good guidelines about what is possible and what is not possible. So please use that as a resource, and I think you'll receive, many of the answers to your questions once you do that. Essentially, for positions that qualify, it indicates here the full-time research positions at the associate research scientist level or higher, and then staff associates must be determined by the ISSO on a case-by-case basis. And you're very, efficient in that area by, asking us in advance because, as you know, some positions we do say would not qualify. We do not indicate here that necessarily postdoc scientist positions qualify, but we know they do. We have filed for many postdoc scientists. And the reason is because as we go down a little bit, we'll see that, what's the difference between an H and a J? And, so I wanted to be able to talk about that at some point, but essentially, the go-to really is for a postdoc is generally a J. A J is more for training, H is more for employment. And, there's several reasons why, and just to highlight some of them, is really to allow the change in funding is really a very helpful, piece for a postdoc to be able to have that opportunity. Also, it maximizes the scholar's time as a non-immigrant, doesn't use up their H life before, they, think that they're going to move on to some other visa status, and then they find out that they're in a position that they have nothing else to move on to. So we always encourage J first and then H, but it is possible. Christina, you can just go back up to the top there where we were. So, of course, tenure track faculty, full-time lecturing positions, and other full-time research and lecture positions in situations when the J1 is not possible. And so that is really why we go in that direction for our postdocs if possible. Then we have positions that do not qualify for H-1B sponsorship, and administrative positions do not qualify unless we can demonstrate that it's critical to the function of the department. And it must be a specialty occupation once again. And so there are opportunities that we are able to do this, but then there are some that we are not. So we review those cases case by case. The length of stay, we all know, is 6 years. An individual can have H-1B status for 6 years. There are exceptions to that 6-year limit. If they can recapture some time that they spent outside the US, they can recapture it, even if it was vacation. It's for any time that they were outside the United States. So if not, there are other opportunities if they're in pursuit of US permanent residence. And so we review those, in the office, and we provide that advice. We ask that you contact us at least 6 months in advance of the 6-year mark to discuss eligibility for additional extensions so that we have enough time to do that. And as that segues into the timeline, we generally, I know it's difficult to get 6 months in advance sometimes, depending on the position, the offer, all of those things that are in place, but we can file 6 months in advance of the requested start date. So if we have that opportunity, we should. It takes us about 6 weeks to get a case out the door. So the more time we have, the better. Of course, there's premium processing that went up significantly to $2,500. And unfortunately, that's standing at this point. And so if we can do it in advance, current processing times at U.S. Immigration is 2 to 3 months, which is actually pretty good. But of course, it can change at any time. So it is important to always leave ourselves enough time if we have that opportunity. And then I think I'm handing it back to Gwyneth.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the actual application process. You will find here an overview of what will happen. So if we click, as you can see here, this is a good example of the Morningside little tab and the CUIMC departments tab. So we always want to click on the CUIMC departments tab. So we click there. And in step 1, the very, very first thing you want to do is you want to gather the documents listed here. So the first step is you want to submit a request to our office to see if the position is eligible and if the beneficiary is eligible for the H-1B request. So this is the very first step. So prior to going into Compass, you are going to gather these documents. So what you will need is the appointment or continuing employment letter, which includes the job title, the job description, salary information, proposed dates of employment, and work locations. And that can even include any off-site locations as well. The job posting from RAPS or Talent Link. We will also need the CV of the prospective employee. And then you'll want to have details about the position and comparable salaries on hand when submitting the first step. I always refer to this as step 1 of the Compass application. All right, so you want to make sure you have those documents on hand. So this is basically to verify that the position is appropriate for the H-1B status and that the Department of Labor component is met with the H-1B application. All right, so we'll proceed to the next step. And again, we are going to click on CUIMC departments. So before we move to an actual application in Compass, which I know you all are waiting for, we want to go over the other piece of this. So in addition to submitting the application in Compass, you also must gather documents to submit to us so that we can file the petition to USCIS, because they only accept paper copies still. So until they are fully remote and fully online, we must comply with this. So that's why we ask for those 2 sets of supporting documents, and I'm going to go over that. So we'll proceed, but this information here gives you the steps of the overview of the entire process. So step 1 is that you are going to submit the H-1B position details and comparable wage information e-form. That's what I refer to always as step 1. And you're going to wait for us to approve, or maybe we won't approve it right away. We might ask for more information. Hopefully we will not deny it outright, but we will need to review this very, very carefully. So once it's approved, then you will be able to complete the rest of the application and give your beneficiary, your prospective beneficiary, the information they will need to complete their piece of the Compass application. So then in step 2, the H-1B employee will complete their information in Compass and they will upload their documents. Step 3, you will compile 2 identical hard copy sets of all supporting documents, which are listed on this website. And you'll need to complete you will need to ensure the completion of the deemed export control attestation e-form. Then you will deliver the paper documents, and USCIS checks must be made to ISSO CYMC. And then you will want to complete the final departmental final attestation in Compass. Okay, so we'll go over all of this today. All right, so if we go to number 4, this is an important step that I want to pay special attention to today. You're gathering documents and you're requesting the checks. So, again, USCIS requires that the petition include hard copies of the supporting documents. So you need to send 2 sets of the following documents. And you can deliver those to the CYMC mailroom, which is in the William Black building, right next door to our office. If that is not possible, we totally understand that these are very unprecedented times that we are living in, and we will work to accommodate, an arrangement with you to get the documents. So just know that we are here to make this work, and we will make it work. So just reach out to us. All right, so now we're going to go over the documentation that's required for the petition. Extremely important, the letter of support. Why is this important? Well, it's important because it paints a picture of the position and of the H-1B beneficiary's credentials to USCIS. So this frames your entire petition. Because it's so important, we have 4 different templates that you can use. Right here on our website, if you click on one of those positions, Officer of Research, Clinical Research Coordinator, as you can see, you will get a template that you can use and edit and cater to your beneficiary and the position. All right, so we really we want to really encourage you to use these templates, but of course you'll need to tweak that to the position and to the prospective beneficiary. You must print this on letterhead and then also get the required signature and then upload it to Compass. And we'll go over the Compass details shortly. All right, so then if the employee will have clinical responsibilities, you will need to provide evidence of passing all 3 parts of the USMLE exams, the ECFMG certificate, and the New York State medical license. This is essential. Sometimes these medical licenses can take a while, and just keep in mind, we cannot file a petition without it. So keep that in mind when Kathy discussed the timeline and the time frame. The earlier you can start working on these applications, the better. That's really what it boils down to. All right, so now let's talk about the fees and the checks. So the department must pay all the required fees for the H-1B petition. So we have details on how to submit the check request in ARC here on our website. And just please note during this time of COVID-19, we have a contingency plan. And so basically when you complete your check request, you want to select CYMC, and then what happens is this results in the check being sent directly to the William Black mailroom address, and then our mailroom officers know to give these checks to us. So we have, worked with very, very closely with the mailroom to have this work out well. However, it's super, super helpful if you could indicate the full name of the prospective H-1B beneficiary in the check request, because it could cause delays if we don't know who the check goes to, which petition it goes to. Ultimately, it will find its way. That we can definitely find out how to match these up, but it can take more time than if we have the actual name on the check. So this just makes it go smoothly for us, and we really appreciate that. So just to go over the fees, all fees must be on separate checks, okay? So the $460 fee is for the I-129 petition itself. The $500 fee is for the fraud prevention and detection fee. So this is only for new H-1B employment at Columbia. So keep in mind that if this is a straight up extension, this fee is not required. The $370 fee is for an I-539 change of status for dependents applying for H-4 status. So the department, please note, is not required to pay any of the dependent fees. There's also an additional $85 biometric services fee for each dependent. All right, so that also could delay matters if we notice that the fees aren't included for the change of status application. And as a courtesy, we will file the change of status application with the petition, with the H-1B petition. All right, so there's also, as you know, this fee has increased to $2,500. That is the premium processing fee that just went up on October 19th. It is an optional fee to expedite, and USCIS adjudication processing time will then, you will get an answer, a response from USCIS within 15 calendar days, rather than 6 months or more with regular processing. However, saying that we are seeing regular processing going a little bit faster than 6 months these days. This is always subject to change, of course. So, but that's where we are at right now. All right, so if you could go down a little further, wonderful, thank you, Christina. And so next we're going to talk about more supporting documents. So we want the employee's CV. We need the highest diploma earned in the original language and the transcript. The transcript can be unofficial. If the transcript's not available, we would need a statement from the university registrar confirming the area in which the degree was conferred. So then also a certified translation, if the diploma is not in English, is required. We have a list of reputable firms that can be used for this. In number 7, this is important to note that a degree evaluation is required. This is a requirement if the degree was not earned in the United States. We have a list of evaluators that can provide evaluations. There's also time involved with this process, so keep that in mind. You may think to yourself, I did an H-1B application 3 years ago and I didn't need an evaluation. Wonder why we need it now. Well, things change, and 3 years ago was a different time, and now it is an absolute requirement to get that evaluation. So just keep that in mind. We need an unexpired passport ID page. Sometimes we get every single page of the passport. That's just not necessary. We will save a tree and just send us the first page, the passport identification page. We don't need the visas. We just need that first page. Sometimes there's a second page if the passport has been extended. So in some cases, there is a requirement to get the 2 pages, but almost always it's just the passport ID page, the 1 page. All right, and again, we need 2 sets of all of these documents, okay? So then the I-94 arrival record is required if the individual is currently in the United States, and the little blue I-94 arrival record can, as you can see, thank you, Christina, you can click on that and it will take you to the I-94 page. All right, so if the individual is now or previously was in the United States in J1 or J2 status, you must provide all previously issued DS 2019 forms from Columbia and any prior institution. So if the applicant was subject to the 2-year home residency requirement, we're also going to need the I-797 approval notice of the I-612 waiver granted by USCIS. So just keep that in mind, that that is a requirement. Now, we only need page 1 of the DS 2019s and any I-797 approval notices. You don't need to send us any information pages. If now currently in the United States in F1 status, we will need copies of all previously issued I-20 forms and EAD cards. So again, no need to include the instructions page, just the first and last page of the I-20. And then, of course, any evidence of the OPT or STEM OPT, such as the EAD, along with a W-2 for every year employed, as well as all pay stubs for the current year, since no W-2 is yet available for that year. And that's required for those in F1 status. If now or previously in the United States in H-1B or O-1 status, we will need to see all I-797 approval notices, again, page 1, that have ever been issued. In addition, USCIS is going to require, it does require that evidence of continued employment until the day the Columbia H-1B petition is filed. So we will need to see 3 most recent pay stubs. So please make sure to include that as well. And I kind of went over this before, but if the H-1B applicant has dependents, the I-539 and I-539A will need to be completed. In addition, there is supporting documents required for the I-539 petition, application, I should say, including the marriage certificate for the spouse, birth certificate for the child or children with an English translation, ID passport page, evidence of the current immigration status, including, for example, any I-797 approval notices, I-20 forms, etc. All right, and we will carry on. So to end that section, those are the supporting documents that we will need 2 sets of, in addition to the checks, in addition to the Compass application, in order to file your H-1B petition. All right, so I just really wanted to go over those details. All right, so now Christina is going to open the guide so that we can now move on to the next section, and we are going to enter Compass. So this is the Compass guide. So here's a little tip for you. If you go all the way to the bottom of that page that we were just on, you can always get easy access to the guide. And I recommend printing out the guide for your first time in Compass, so that you can be in Compass, unless you have 2 screens, however you want to do it. If you have 2 screens, that's wonderful too. You can certainly do it that way. But just have the guide next to you, particularly for the first time that you go into Compass, so that you can refer to the guide when you're in Compass. All right, so this is the user guide. It is online, and so whenever there are updates to the guide, they will be immediate. So the only downside of having a printout is it could get outdated. So just keep that in mind, that this is always being updated by our communications team as we tweak and try to make your user experience better and better. All right. So then, this is, just to give you an overview of the guide, it is a step-by-step instructional guide to navigate the application process in Compass. There are screenshots, as you can see. Maybe you can show them a screenshot, Christina. So here are the steps, and you can see we have screenshots so that you can very easily navigate through the Compass application. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Christina, who is going to give the prelude of the Compass system.
Thank you, Gwyneth. So now we are on the Compass main page. So if you go to compass.issa.columbia, this is the page you'll land on. And as you can see, we have 3 logins. The first 2 is for the scholars. And then this last one, the Administrative Services for University Departments, is where you will log in. So please always follow this link. Okay, so this is the page that you will receive. And as you can see on the left, there are different options. So we have the Departmental Services Overview, Add New Person, and here are the different applications. We have H-1B and the J-1 Scholars. So we have 2 different options of adding an application. We could either go through the H-1B employee application, and if the H-1B was already previously at Columbia in either status, you could send us an email and we'll provide you with the university ID and the date of birth. And then the record will open. You could also add a person by going to Add New Person. And this is the information you'll add if they have not been previously at Columbia. So you will add the last name, the first name, if they have a middle name, the date of birth, the gender, the email, and the campus. And please remember here to add CMC Scholars. And then you can add the requested immigration status. So for this one, it would be an H-1B. For these 2 questions here, please always answer no. And then if you would hit Add New Person, it will pop up under Departmental Services Overview. So if you click here, you can see all your cases. So we'll look into a case right now. So we'll go into this one. So if you click on them, then you can see the application you have started. So this would be the H-1B employee application. And this is what the page looks like if you go into a record. So as you can see, this one was previously submitted. So that's why we have the checkboxes. So this is what the page looks like. And at the bottom of the page, we can see a key, which is very informative if you want to see the status of the application. If it would be a blank box, that means the form is still incomplete. So here you can see that they're complete because they all have checkboxes. You see the last form would be pending review from our office. This is why that looks like. So that's very helpful. And one great tip is at the very bottom of the page, you can see View, Save, Print, eForm Group. So if you click here, and this should open, you can see a PDF of all the forms. So this is all the information that was submitted by the department as well as the H-1B applicant. And at the very bottom page of this, you will see all the documents that were uploaded. We have cute puppies as an example for a test record, but usually you would see the passport, the CV, all the documents that you uploaded in this application. So we'll go back to the page and we'll just look into one of the forms. And one tip I also have is please make sure when you're submitting a form that you do it in one sitting because sessions do time out. So usually after 15-20 minutes, make sure you have all the information in place before you hit the submit button. So before you would start a form, I would recommend look through the form first, check what documents you need to upload, as well as making sure you have all the information you need to provide. And to go back to the record, you can just click here on main page. You'll have the university ID and the name. So you can always click here. That's a little faster to get back to the record. So now Gwyneth and I will go through an application and go through all the forms.
Excellent. All right, so now the fun begins. So as I mentioned before, we will start with step one. Step one is critical. The information that you enter in step one, and you can go ahead and go to step one, H-1B position details with comparable wage information. So this information is what you are providing to determine the prevailing wage for the position. So you must stay true to the position. It's critical that you provide a detailed description of the job duties and include the years of experience, any supervision and special skills needed, because this information must be accurate because we have to determine the prevailing wage based on the information you give to us. So please stay very true to what the position is. So for special skills that are inherent in the position do not need to be included. So for example, a bioinformatics analyst must have the ability to apply computational methods. This is inherent to the position. Special skills, for example, could be a requirement of knowledge of high level or unusual laboratory equipment beyond the usual scope. So I just wanted to point that out. This form here is a very, very important form, and this is why we must approve this form before you can proceed with the application. We have to, review it, make our calculation and determination of what that prevailing wage is, and then if we do find an error on the form itself, we will ask you to resubmit the form. So some of you may have experienced that. It can be a real drag, so just try to remember to have this filled out as precisely as possible. So we already filled out this form so that we are just going to review it here. So again, the documents that you will need are listed on the top of the page, and that is, as I mentioned before, for step one, the appointment or continuing employment letter, including the details of the salary, job title, job description, work locations, and proposed dates of employment. You must include the job posting, the RAPS or Talent Link posting, and the employee's CV.
Gwyneth, I just wanted to interrupt for one sec. Sorry.
Yep. No, please.
Okay, just quickly, we are going to add to that list the visa documents of the current visa documents of the individual. So we will be changing the Z form slightly to add that to the list.
Yeah, and I think it's already been added on the bottom so that you might already find that's a requirement of the uploads. So we need that information right there on the bottom. All previous immigration documentation that the prospective beneficiary has held. This is important so that we know if they are eligible for more time if they're currently in H-1B, or what their situation is. We really need this information to help us to determine how much time and what we can determine at this point in the process. Thank you, Kathy. All right. So then if we go back up to the top, so you are just going to fill out this information field by field. You're going to enter the department where the H-1B employee will work. You will enter the address, the department's address. You will enter the supervisor's name and information, all the departmental information. We ask that you also include the FedEx account number, because the department will be charged for any FedExes that we must send to USCIS for this individual. And then we want to know whether or not the prospective H-1B is already employed in the United States. So, so you will find details on the dates and information here. So just keep in mind that there is a lot of information that you can read to help you navigate through the e-form. And then you will enter the dates in the proposed start date and end date. All right, so then you will enter the position information, and you will enter the position title. And there's a drop down of various titles. The job duties and requirements of the position, we really need this to be as accurate as possible. And there are times when I've had to have departmental administrators, correct things. We definitely look at this with a fine eye for detail. And then, very importantly, how many years of experience is required for this position? Make sure that this is accurate. This really weighs in heavily on our calculations, so make sure that this is true to the job description, the job itself. Does this job include supervisory duties? Yes or no? Is this position supervised? Yes or no? Please note, all positions sponsored at Columbia University Irving Medical Center must be full-time. You must include the salary, etc., benefits, bonefits, anything, any other forms of bonuses or remunerations must be entered. We must know if this job requires any travel. We need the minimum educational requirement for the position, the required degree field or area of specialization for the position. And then, as I mentioned before, here is where you will put in any special skills. If the skills are, it seems special, but it is actually inherent in the position, no need to enter anything there. You will also need to enter the work site location. And if there are more than one work sites, you will add those work sites by checking yes, and then there will be more fields that you can fill out for that additional information. Now, with the next question, this is also a very important question. So is this position a union position? So remember that postdocs, associate research scientists are now union, so be sure to click the correct box there. If it is not a union position, then the following information must be provided: the comparable wage information. So you will need to indicate the salary range of individuals within your department with the same job title and similar qualifications as the applicant, if any. The prospective H-1B beneficiary's salary should not be included in this range. However, the beneficiary's salary must fall within or above the range of salaries. So this is the actual wage. Okay, so as we proceed, and you'll also need to include the number of employees included in the range. You must upload the appropriate documents here, and then you will submit. Then you are going to wait for our office to approve your request, hopefully. If we do not approve, we will reach out to you and ask you for additional information. We will definitely let you know what is needed. Or if we can't proceed with the application, we will give you a reason why we can't proceed. All right, so then what's going to happen in Compass is the next steps are going to open up, so you will be able to fill them out. All right, so we're going to show you then the step 2 will be completed by the H-1B employee. Step 3 and 4 are completed by the department. So while your employee is filling out step 2, you can also be filling out step 3. So just keep that in mind, that those can be done simultaneously. You will need to give your employee access to their fields. And then once they have the access, and this is how you give access right there. You click on that button, and you will be able to put their email address in here, send the email, and that will give them the access. So please don't forget to do that. Thank you, Christina. Christina, do you have anything to add? Kathy as well. Did I miss anything?
No, so I do get this question a lot though, how to give the scholar access. So if you are on the page and it doesn't seem like the scholar can access the forms, please remember that you do go into the first form for the scholar. It's the H-1B employee information form. And at the top of the page, as Gwyneth mentioned, you do have to click on this link and add to the scholar's email and then send the email. So please remember doing that.
Kathy, did I miss anything?
No, I think it was great. No, thank you. I think talking about the access, we did change that access for our extension applications. So you will see a little bit of a change. One important detail overall important detail I want to, convey to everybody is that this is a system that, we are still working through some of the forms and changing some of the e-forms, but overall, you might see little tweaks here and there, but nothing major. So just keep that in mind. For instance, the one Gwyneth mentioned about uploading these visa documents in the first step, that's new. But overall, the only thing I wanted to add was the access will not need to be given in an extension application to the applicant. We will be automatically taking care of that and providing the login to the applicant.
Excellent. Okay, great. So step 1 is extremely important because that launches you for the rest of the application. Then you will give your prospective employee access, and then your prospective employee will be able to access Compass and fill out their section. So now we will just go through what the employee will need to complete in step 2. So H-1B employee information, and this is what they will need to complete. They will need to upload all of these documents at the bottom, but we wanted to, tell them what they will need in order to fill out this form so they have those documents available. All right, so then they'll fill out their biographical information. In this case, it is Santa Claus. He was born in London. on December 25th, 1980. Very young Santa. All right, so then you will also, very important to note, your beneficiary, prospective beneficiary, I should say, is going to be completing the public benefits information questionnaire. They will click on this link here, and they will fill out the information, sign it, and then upload it at the bottom of this form. The passport information must be entered. The address, if the individual is currently in the United States, must be entered. If they are outside of the United States, they will provide their permanent residential address abroad. We will need the academic credentials, and we give them instructions that if, about that evaluation and translation, so they are aware.
Can I just interrupt real
Yes.
quick here? The conditions, sometimes just review some of the conditions. If you go up a little bit, Christina, I know we're not opening them right now, but at least we can bring, so here where it says, are you currently in the US? If you say no, that condition opens up. If you say yes, I guess the address for the US is in there, but there are some conditions throughout the application that will expand into additional questions.
That's right. Thank you. All right, prior J1 status. This is an example of that. This is extremely important because we must know if the individual is subject to 212E, which is the 2-year home residence requirement. And if so, that could preclude us from filing an H-1B unless the individual has the waiver. So this is extremely important. So if the individual clicks yes, that will open up, and they will include the information of their J1 or J2 status. Previous U.S. employment, have you ever been employed inside the United States? Again, that one will also open up if they select yes. And then the individual will upload the documentation. If there's an asterisk by the name, that is a requirement. And Christina, do you have any other tips about submitting the application by the beneficiary?
Sure. So one tip, as Gwyneth just mentioned, if it does have asterisks, it does mean it's required. So maybe before you hit submit, go through the application one more time, make sure you've clicked everything, filled out all the information, because if you do click submit and the required information was not filled out, you will receive a pop-up message that you will have to go back and you might have to fill out some more information and you might lose some. So always just make sure before you hit submit that all the information is filled in.
Thank you. All right.
And I just want to say also that Compass is a system, that was created by an outside vendor. And so some of the issues or glitches that we may have are Compass, Synapsis actually is the proper name of the system. And then, we can call it what we want, which we named it Compass at Columbia. But the Synapsis system has certain embedded, functions that are not easily changed or can even be changed. So we worked, around some of them, and then some are not possible.
Exactly. All right. So then the individual will complete the other sections. And then meanwhile, you can be completing step 3, the supporting documentation and deemed export attestation. But to go back to step 2, we will briefly look at each form so that you see what is involved with each E-form. U.S. immigration status and history, that information must be indicated to us, as you can see here. If they are working or studying currently in the United States, we would like to know that. If not, then we would like to know the the city of the U.S. consular post where the individual will be applying for the entry visa. Of course, Canadian citizens are exempt from the visa requirement and must provide the port of entry or pre-flight inspection location. All right, so that's the next form. They must indicate if they have dependents. And so in this case, this individual has dependents and they will be traveling with them. So just keep in mind that this is a drop down with various answers. So they must click on the correct answer. So some of them have dependents, but maybe they're not traveling with them and entering right now as H4. So we have various drop downs. So they should be able to answer what applies to them in their situation. And then in the next field, they will include the information on the dependent spouse or child if they do have a dependent right here.
So Gwyneth, this is the information we can add if another dependent wants to be added.
Perfect. Yes. And if you have more, thank you. If you have more than one dependent, you can add as many, they can add as many dependents as they need.
Exactly.
Thank you, Christina. And then they will include prior visits to the United States. And this just asks if they have previously visited the United States. If they select no, then they will just continue with the rest of the application. If they enter yes, they must include the details of that trip. And then finally, they will notify the Department of form completion. So they will click and attest that all completed forms, that they have completed all the forms for the H-1B petition request. By submitting this form, they understand that the department may proceed in completing the H-1B petition request. And they are also stating that copies of documents submitted are exact photocopies of unaltered original documents. They understand that they may be required to submit original documents to an immigration or consular officer at a later date. So they are attesting that this information is true and accurate and that they will be able to provide the originals if necessary. And then we're going to go into step 3, which is your section. So again, alongside they're completing their section, you can complete your section.
Gwyneth, I just wanted to
Yes,
add.
please.
I wanted to add, as far as the documents uploaded by the employee, as the department is responsible for submitting a complete set to us, we ask that, you know, what the employee has submitted is correct, accurate, and complete.
Yes. Yes. All right. So then this goes over the clinical responsibilities and, you know, the evidence of passing all 3 parts of the USMLE is required, the ECFMG, as I mentioned before, and the New York medical license. Then we have the letter of support information. This is very similar to what you saw on the website. The filing fees. We ask if you are requesting premium processing. And then you are to upload those documents here. And then the deemed expert attestation. So what happens here is you are going to, and the details of the expert attestation form are found on this link or this e-form here. And also note that you are going to provide the contact information of the prospective employee's hiring supervisor, principal investigator, department chair, or other appropriate university authority responsible for oversight of the employee's work and access to technology. So that person's email will go in here, and then once you click submit, they are going to automatically receive an email that with the link to instructions to then complete their section of this e-form.
Christina, can you just scroll to the top of the form? Okay, so the form guidance, you know, as we've been going through all these forms, you can see the format is very similar. The form guidance is always there, which is very helpful for each form. This particular form, deemed expert attestation, we do receive lots of questions, and we are not in a position to answer those questions. This is, you know, way beyond our area of expertise. We have an Office of Research Compliance, and in the in the email that the second approver will receive, we do link them to, and correct me if I'm wrong there, Gwyneth, we do link them to the Office of Research Compliance.
Yes,
and there is an abundance of information on that website, and it will help the second approver who is, you know, making this determination. You know, the information on the Office of Research Compliance website will provide that that guidance. So we are not in a position to ever answer these questions. We will always refer you to that office. So just know that whomever is the second approver will have a link that in that email that will provide that information.
Thank you. Yes. Very important to note. All right, as we are carrying on, once your the individual that you have chosen to fill out that form fills out their section, then they will you will see a little checkbox, and you will be able, and once all those e-forms are submitted and submitted correctly, then step 4 is going to open up, and you will be able to enter it, and then you will be able to check off that you have completed all the required e-forms for this request. You are checking off that the prospective H-1B beneficiary has completed all of their e-forms. You have made 2 sets of all supporting documents and will deliver or have delivered the sets to ISSO CYMC. You have delivered or will deliver the required checks for the USCIS filing fees. And then you're checking off that you're giving authorization to our office to submit this request to USCIS. So this is the final form. So you'll check this off. And then ensure that your supporting documents, of course, go to the mailroom. Ensure that the check requests have been made. And then the ball is in our court to review and file this petition. And now I'm going to pass the baton back to Kathy to discuss a few tips on submitting an extension and general tips, and then we will move on to the Q&A section.
Okay, thanks, Gwyneth. So regarding the extension application, we were not really going to go through an extension application since it's very similar but shorter than what you would have to do for an initial application. And so just, some tips that are important for you to know. Since the employee is already in H-1B status, they will have a Compass ID. Anybody that, is at Columbia in H-1B has been, from our old system to this system, has been migrated over to the Compass system. So even though they may have been processed under the old way we did H's, which was paper, they are in Compass. So you would need to reach out to us to get their, via email to get their Compass ID. And then what this will do is prevent duplicate records from being created. And so we really appreciate that you contact us and not just create a new record if the person is already here. If the H-1B was processed in Compass, let's say last year, and now we're extending them already, which is unusual, but if they had a 1-year H and now it's time, maybe we already have them in Compass, and you were the user, you should have that person's name in your past cases. And so it's very helpful Christina has it up on the screen here. You'll have a list of past cases and current cases. So if you were to go into your past cases, you would be able to click on that person's name and get into their record. If you are not the departmental user, you will need to email us because you will not have access to that. Okay, also, I think I brought up earlier that unlike the initial where you need to give access to the employee, we will be providing those login details to the employee now. We just changed that the other day as we were, finessing some things in Compass. But just keep in mind, we will not give that access until after your eligibility is approved. So in other words, after we approve that e-form for the comparable wage and position details information. When you are extending and you're in the comparable wage form and you have to upload the documents that we request, we received many questions about the proof of the RAPS or talent link posting. Do we need to post again? And no, you do not need to post again. If there is no change to the position, then just give us the original RAPS or talent link posting. But we will need proof if this, that the academic appointment is being extended, or if it's an administrative or support staff position, that it's going to be, that there's a real offer out there to extend this person. And so we will accept a letter from the department HR verifying this, and that should work fine. And of course, if the position has changed and there is a new posting or, something that we should have, then please for sure give it to us. We've already mentioned that there is no $500 fee for extensions. So please do not provide, have a check issued for the $500. I think that's all my tips for extensions, unless there's anything in the form that I'm looking at, but I don't think so. I think overall, you'll find that an extension application is fairly straightforward once you have the initial down pat. Okay, so now just some general tips I wanted to share. When preparing the supporting documents, for either the extension or the initial, please follow that list on the website. I think I've said this more than once today, that we've revised the list to be more specific on the website. So I think it's more concise, more direct as to what you will need. And, Gwyneth and I receive all the H documents, and trust me, there are times that I have almost thrown out a ream of paper because there's too many documents. So we do not need e-forms. So when you open up that view, save, print e-form group at the bottom of the main page there, the first thing you're going to see are going to be your e-forms and the employees' e-forms. We do not need those. Those are in Compass. They're perfect. We can read them. We do not need copies of them. As you scroll down in this dossier, as we call it, you will also have, you'll see all the attachments that are included. And that's where you're going to be able to print out the 2 sets of the CV, the degree, the evaluation of the degree, all the things that the employee uploaded, you're going to be able to just print from there. We rely on you to act as a liaison for us in collecting the documents from the scholar and from your, from the department, and putting them all together. And with Compass, I mean, it's been a blessing in that regard, in that you have access to all those documents now by just electronic upload. They do not need to be hand carried to you, copied. I know we're all facing challenges with the copying, but I think we've gotten a lot of this working remotely down to almost a science. So maybe we can call ourselves scientists now. So hopefully that list is more precise and more helpful and in assisting in the documents that we need. Just other little tips: don't staple any documents, please, because that will help as well. And as Gwyneth mentioned, just page 1 of the documents. We just need the important page of a DS 2019, which is the front page. We need the important page of the H-1B approval notice. Sometimes they're 4 pages long. We only need that first page. And so please also review the documents carefully and see what you're submitting to us, that I'm not getting multiple copies of the same thing. And I'm not complaining. I really appreciate everything everybody does in trying to pull together as much as we can in this virtual situation. But I guess it's also just saving a lot of trees, trust me, because, we need not that many documents overall. And then the checks has been a challenge, but we have worked it out. So the checks are not going to go to you. They're going to go to the mailroom, and then they're going to come to us. So I think our instructions on the website might say to bring them, with the checks. We will have the checks. And until that changes, we'll let you know. But the checks come to us with the name. If you can put in the check request the beneficiary's name, then I don't have to go back to the controller's office to try to dig out who the initiator was of that check was, and then go from the initiator to the department. So that would be a huge help. And I think, our timeline, we do ask for 6 weeks from the time the case is initiated in Compass, basically from the time the case is approved. As far as the E-form is approved, the comparable wage E-form is approved by us. From that point, it could take us 4 to 6 weeks to get a case out the door. Of course, when we have emergencies, we always, I think, are always able to meet that challenge. But timely applications are, very helpful. And that means it can be 6 months in advance. So up to 6 months, we can file a case. So that's the end of my tips. So now we will answer the questions that I think we have. We have a few questions. I don't think we have too many. So Gwyneth, do you want to start with that?
Sure. So I can start with the question, can premium processing be applied after submission? Very good question. So basically, if you start an application, let's say, for example, an extension. So we could start with regular processing in hopes that, we will get that approval in a decent time frame. But if we find that it's taking longer and longer and longer, and we're just not getting anything and months are going by, we can always upgrade that case to premium processing. So at any time, you could always upgrade a case to premium processing. In most cases, however, it's just better to submit the premium processing check right at the beginning. But definitely, we can always upgrade a case. The second question is, I will say the question, and I will maybe pass this one to Kathy.
Yeah,
At
I think, yeah, go ahead.
at some point, can you review which of the recent H-1 changes will not be implemented? Are the fees reverting back as well?
Okay, so that's a very good question, and thank you. So the two interim final rules, the increase in the premium processing, those really are the three major things. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the interim final rules were essentially struck down. Does that mean forever? I don't think so, but I think they put up a good fight, and I don't know if that will ever come back, but honestly, there's no way for us to know that. The premium processing fee, I have not heard anything about that. I mean, I know that there was there was some legal proceedings. So at this point, it still stands. As soon if it does go back, we will let you know as soon as it does. But as with a new administration coming in, those things might change, in a positive direction, possibly. But we do not know. This is Department of Homeland Security and Department of Labor. They put forth this to the new administration. It will be up to them, and it will, actually be something we will convey as soon as we have that information.
Great. The next question I can take is, can the supporting documents be FedExed to your office? Most certainly. If that's an easier way for you to get those supporting documents to us, you can definitely FedEx them to our office.
I would just add, we do have our address on the website. So just make sure our box number is box 57B as in boy. We're like best buddies with our neighbor in the mail rooms because, we are right next door to each other. So they know us well, so they know our mailbox, but it would be helpful just to have the correct address.
And maybe, Kathy, could you answer this one? We both can answer, of course. Does the department have to pay the fees, or can the employee pay?
The department must pay the fees. There was debate about that, but we at Columbia made it a policy that we pay the fees, except possibly for the premium processing fee if it is for personal reasons. So the premium processing fee obviously is pretty significant these days. For instance, if an H-1B employee wants to travel and they're filing their extension, and their extension that's not a good example, excuse me. So let's say they're just, need to travel emergently for family matters, they just want to travel on their vacation. But meanwhile, the H-1B would allow them to remain here and continue to work based on the 240-day extension rule. So they would have another 8 months of employment, no problem. But they want to premium process it so they can get it approved in time for their trip. Well, in that case, the employee could pay. When it becomes, necessary for Columbia to keep this individual employed, we take that position that it should be paid by the university. Dependent fees do not need to be paid by the university.
Great. I could take the next question. A postdoc started in October on an OPT visa. So that's in F1 status. The individual's in F1 status under an EAD card. How soon can we start an H-1B application? So the answer is, this is a perfect example of why we want those immigration documents in step one, so that we can see what the appropriate timeline is. And this would require a conversation with the department. So we would need to take a look at that employment authorization card, of course, see if we should truncate it slightly. We just need to determine what the situation is. So this is a very good example of this is a case-by-case situation, and this is exactly why we need those visa documents.
I might add that, when it comes to an F1 in OPT who in some cases has almost 36 months of practical training, and a J1 who could have, several more years in their J1 life, we really strongly recommend that they stay in those statuses so that they're not using up their H1 prematurely. So we do encourage OPT, and J1s to use up that status. Now, the question, really relates to how far in advance can we file? So we can, if this individual has OPT into the future, then we could, file under regular processing. We'll have plenty of time to get the H-1B. We could request a date 6 months in advance so that if that individual has OPT till August of next year, we could file it in February and request a September 1 start date 6 months in advance, and they remain in that status. But then there are some, pitfalls to that, which, is why we need to have a discussion. The individual's change of status could occur in 2 months, but they're not in that status for until the 6 month mark. And then that creates some travel issues for them if they want to travel, things like that. So, but 6 months in advance is how far we can file.
Thank you, Kathy. Can the departmental administrator be sent the deemed export attestation to complete, or should it be completed by the department chair? We do say in our instructions that whomever is the person who would be able to best answer the question. It can be an administrative person, it can be a chair, it can be a PI. It does not have to be a chair. And this one, Christina, I might ask for your assistance on this question. In Compass, I find it difficult to edit information already submitted. I seem to have to retype most of the information. Am I doing something incorrectly?
Of course. So if you want to change any information in the forms after you have submitted, please send us an email with the form name that you want to change. And then we will, on our end, put it back into draft, let you know, and you can go into the form, make the change, and hit submit again.
All right. Thank you so much, Christina. So as you can see, Christina is very knowledgeable about Compass. So, and I'm sure many of you already know that, but she is your contact person for any Compass-related questions that you might have. All right. So here's a question. If we are filing an H-1B for a postdoc and do not have a RAPS current or previous posting, can we upload a JD only?
Okay, so there is no posting. Yeah, that always gets us. We do need, yes. I mean, the reason for the RAPS posting or the talent link posting is to really see a job description. But we want to make sure it's official. This is an official job description. This isn't just a couple of paragraphs that somebody put together. This has been approved for the position. That I would, just like I said, as long as it's an official, job description, it should be acceptable.
Okay. And then this is kind of along the same lines, and it's in regard to the hiring freeze exemption. So to post a postdoctoral position in RAPS, we have to go through the hiring freeze exemption process, and it's been taking a long time. There's not really a question. However, this hiring freeze process must take place in order for us to file an H-1B petition. So in all positions, if it's a new position, this must be cleared and the position must be offered. It must be an actual position that is going to take place in order for us to file an H-1B petition. All right, so then maybe I'll have Kathy help with this one. Is a lab manager position eligible for H-1B sponsorship?
Those are very tough positions. Fortunately, that interim final rule was struck down, but the scrutiny on our H's is much greater. Even though a Columbia University position requires a bachelor's degree, doesn't necessarily mean that U.S. immigration is going to agree with that. They look at what we call the Occupational Outlook Handbook in the Department of Labor website. And there in that OOH, there is a description of what the normal job duties would be, what the job requirements would be, what the academic requirements would be. And so they use that as a guide. And in some cases, based on the job duties that we've described in our support letter to U.S. immigration, they compare it with the job duties that would fall within a similar position in the OOH. And the OOH may say it doesn't require a bachelor's. And so then they bounce it back to us and say, you need to prove to us that this requires a bachelor's degree. Well, there's a risk of denial in that case. And so I am very clear in these applications for these type positions that they may or may not qualify, and, inform the department and give them the information. And, once again, to let the department make that decision. If we were to file an application that cost us about $3,500 in fees and it gets denied, I want to make sure that the department was fully informed before. So lab manager jobs, many times the duties are not, do not meet the H-1B criteria. If we have, a more higher level position, there is, that's something we would review and let you know.
All right. So then the next question is, can a postdoc be hired on OPT? Is this preferable to an H-1B visa? So I can answer that. So definitely a postdoc can be hired under OPT. The requirement is that the individual must be working in his or her field of study. So that must be taking place. But is this preferable to an H-1B visa? Well, as Kathy mentioned, in some cases, individuals can get up to 36 months of OPT. So this, again, is case by case. We can take a look at the situation. But Kathy, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, just once again, I think it's important that you, you think that the department and the employee really think through making these decisions. But OPT currently is still very available and, a smart choice. So yeah, no problem. So this last question here, Gwyneth, is if a Tech B currently in another country needs to get a drug screening for employment, can they come in on a visitor visa, then apply for an H-1 while they are here? Absolutely not. Do not do that. That would be a major mistake. And the reason why is because, first of all, they were entering in a fraudulent manner, in that they were entering as a B, which is essentially for tourism, and now they're going to get a job. So no, that would be a severe violation that could really come back to bite them. Okay, so I think we've answered all the questions, and we hope that you found this training helpful. It's been a really tough year for all of us, but one of the silver linings, I think, has been, that we've implemented Compass, just before going remote. I mean, we got in one training and then we went remote. So the timing could have not, been more perfect in that, way. It really, truly was a great thing. And I thank immensely my team, Gwyneth and Christina, Hadijah and Anne, all work extremely hard on Compass. I have an amazing tech team, embedded in my team. So I'm so grateful. And so thank you all. And it was great seeing you and not seeing you, sorry, presenting to you. And someday we will see each other again, hopefully soon. As we mentioned, it will be it has been recorded, and so we will be able to share this with you as soon as our communications team will get it up on the website. So thank you so much.